Hey there, it's Wayfair here, where delivery and setup are as easy as a few taps on your phone. You're relaxing in an old hammock, scrolling Wayfair's app, when you spot it, a brand new patio set. Next thing you know, Wayfair delivers it right to your patio and sets it up. Oh, you need a new grill too? All right, Wayfair's got you covered. With Wayfair's Room of Choice delivery and fast expert setup on qualifying orders, life gets a little easier. Visit wayfair.com or the Wayfair app.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
I'm Whitney Baker, coach, facilitator, meditation teacher, and writer. Electric Ideas is for women, especially mothers, who are done disappearing inside their responsibilities. If you're holding everything together but running on empty or feeling disconnected from your needs and desires, this is a place to come back to yourself. If you're ready to feel alive again in the messy middle of real life, you're in the right place. Let's spark something. Welcome back to Electric Ideas. I'm your host, Whitney Baker. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to take a minute to let you know that, backed by popular demand, the Summer Joy Challenge for moms is back in action. Now is the time to take that 2 minutes, lock in, claim your spot, because we begin on Monday, June 22nd. I know from my own experience and from years of working with moms, we get so busy planning and feeling like everything is a moving target that you forget to slow down, you forget to feel present, and you forget to enjoy summer for yourself. The Summer Joy Challenge is 8 weeks of free invitations to remember your own joy, to let yourself drop into that play and aliveness that I know you're being thoughtful about for your family as well. I don't want you to get to Labor Day and feel like the summer passed you by. So sign up today, share the link with your friends because it's something fun to talk about. You can find the Summer Joy Challenge sign up link in the show notes. You can also find me on Instagram at @WhitneyWoman and download it there. If for any reason you can't find it on Instagram, just drop me a note. You can DM me and I'll float you the link. Okay, we've got a new show today, and I'm so excited to be joined by Amy Haydak. Amy is a licensed clinical social worker, parent coach, and author who's been helping mothers and families for more than a decade. Today, we're touching on a lot of themes from her book, which is called Unwritten Stories, A Mother's Journey to Becoming. As you'll sense immediately from this conversation, Amy is one of those people who sincerely wants to support mothers. As a mother of 2, she's experienced firsthand how motherhood can challenge our sense of identity and also intensify emotional responses. A lot of her work supports mothers in breaking generational cycles, reclaiming their sense of self, and creating meaningful changes in their lives through greater confidence, emotional regulation, and deeper connection with their families. I know you're going to have some beautiful takeaways from this very meaningful conversation with Amy, so let's get into it. Amy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Something you wrote about in your book that I feel deeply aligned with is this, and I want to just start with a quote. You wrote, "Motherhood doesn't require silencing your needs. It invites you to embrace them and grow more deeply connected to yourself and those you love." Why was this something really important for you to have at the onset, the opening of your book?
I think it's because when we become mothers, we get very enmeshed in the role of motherhood. And I think society very much reinforces that for us, the idea of supermom and, this all these things are going to happen. You're going to love it, So it's almost like we already have that pressure to fall in line with what the role of motherhood should be, leaving not much room for who we were. And then it's like a competition of who we were versus being a mother versus integrating it all together and learning what this new version of us can actually be. So I think sometimes we forget that we don't have to lose part of us when we become mothers and the entire, journey of being a mom, that we can integrate it all together.
Yeah, let's talk about that because I think it's nuanced, right? Because sometimes I think in motherhood, it's normal, our priorities change, like our identity shifts, everything changes. And there's parts of us that might just fade away. But I do feel like sometimes there's this false binary of you, like, now you're a mother, that's your primary role, that's your primary identity. And then women feeling like they are supposed to get back to something that might not even serve them. Do you find that a lot of your clients traverse that?
I mean, clients and myself, absolutely. Like in any reflection going forward of like what I want and who I am, like you said, the priority shifts. What I felt was a priority served me back then. And the same thing with a lot of the clients. It's not necessarily the same priority. So I think the important like reflection in that space is what is the biggest part of you that's feeling neglected? The stuff that really used to bring you joy and make you feel happy, what is that? And now it might not look the same now for me 7 years later after having children that it did before having children. But
Yeah.
why is it important? How does it relate to my values? How does it relate to who I identify myself as being? And how can it be adapted, going forward in the life that I have now?
I really like what you said, adapted, because it might be that there's a certain feeling you got when you did things pre kids. And I found that there's times when I'm craving feeling that way, but it doesn't necessarily need to happen from how I produced that feeling before, if that makes sense. Do you have any examples that come to mind from your life or your work with clients of women kind of realizing that and finding something that actually fits in their modern mom life and still feels good and scratches that itch, if you will?
Absolutely. I think it ties mostly the biggest conversation we have is the idea of self-care or taking time for ourselves, which in motherhood we know how ridiculously hard that is sometimes. One of the biggest or the hardest shift for me was the concept of my physical exercise. So before having kids, I lived at the gym. I was there 6 days a week, 2 hours every day. Nutrition was my life. Like that was my focus. So now after having children, I don't have the time or space or energy to get that same feeling in the same way, right? Like you just said, how do we adapt that? And a lot of the women I work with, that's the same thing. Like I don't have time for myself. How do we intertwine it throughout the day? 30 seconds here, 3 minutes here. Now, no, it's not 2 hours a day at the gym, but we can still have that space for us. We can still get our needs met. We can still check in and say, hey, did we have any water today? Sometimes it's simplifying it to those basic needs that help us to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves first to be the best version of mom that we can be for our children. But I think that's the biggest adaptation is figuring out what's your version of self-care and how can we sprinkle it in throughout the day and not expect that the only time we can do self-care is when we have a whole weekend to ourselves because
Mm.
that will never happen.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I feel like it gets into this rigid thinking sometimes that I don't think suits
Right.
us because there is no going back to pre-motherhood, and we know that, but I feel like some people have trouble if they can't, do something to the capacity that they did pre-kids. They just don't do it all. So, I like that
I've been there,
idea.
done that. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, all of
That is
us.
exactly right. Yeah.
And something else that I think has helped me, and I know a lot of my clients, is to be really honest about the season you're in your motherhood journey. Obviously, your capacity looks different if you've got care for aging parents, if your kid, or if you have a little bit more capacity because your kids are a little bit more independent. And I think it shifts. And I think sometimes when moms have young kids, it's hard to know that that'll happen, and there will be times when you do have a little bit more time.
Yeah. And then what happens when you do have time? I'm not there yet in my life with children, but I'm assuming that when it is a little quieter in my life or it slows down, that might not be the right term, slowing down, but that the independence of my children grows, then what about me? And that's part that I put in the book is like, well, now I have this extra time. And a lot of moms are like, well, I feel guilty not giving that time to my children, even though they don't necessarily,
Mm.
or I don't know what to do with my time. I don't know how to go back to spaces that serve me because all of the last 7 to 10 years, whatever it was, is really much snacks, nap time, sports, whatever it is. You don't know how to shift into taking care of yourself.
Oh, that's really interesting. I like that because I feel like it actually just underscores what you were saying of starting with that drip, like what can I fit in? Because usually if you have some sort of small drips, it's easier to expand on those versus just like abandoning and then being like, okay, now what?
Absolutely. Yeah, you should have it in the schedule. So if you're into like doing walks or you're an artist or you're going out with whatever it is that you enjoy doing, you might be able to do it once a month or 5 minutes a day and then you have more time and you're like, "Oh, I can do this 30 minutes a day or twice a month." Like you said, it's already established and then we can just continue to expand from there. But starting from nothing for so long and then jumping into it is going to be really difficult.
You mentioned that part of what was a hard part for you was not having the same bandwidth and capacity to tend to your body. I want to read this really beautiful passage from your book because it speaks into this a little bit. And I know it's really relatable for moms. You wrote, "For stay-at-home mothers, the body's exhaustion can feel like a silent trap with no break in sight. For working mothers, pushing through physical recovery to return to performance can feel brutal and unfair. Even with help, many women find themselves struggling silently because our culture celebrates strong moms, but does not honor broken bodies." Can you speak into that a little bit?
Absolutely. I actually just published an article, well, like last month maybe, about the idea of supermom, and that you have people coming at you saying, I don't know how you do it. You're doing so much, this, that, and the other. And it's meant to be a compliment. And it silently, like, well, not silently, but it reinforces the idea of, I'm supposed to be able to do all of this. Or, like, on the outside, I might look like I can do 9,000 things at once and survive. Like, I want to do more than survive. Or on the inside, I'm struggling. I'm crumbling. I don't, I'm on the verge of a breakdown. When you're not looking, I'm screaming at my kids. What does it really look like? So the idea of supermom and the healing that we have to do physically, mentally, emotionally, all of those things, right? That doesn't really get paid attention to. It's this, well, you're doing it all. You're keeping it all together. Motherhood must be great kind of an attitude. And even I know I experienced this, and I'm the professional here, right? I'm the mental health professional, and I was struggling to identify what I was going through. But even I have a wonderful family, great support, but I still felt isolated and I still felt alone and I still felt like I was struggling, but I didn't quite understand how or why I was struggling because I was am so blessed. So this idea of like, I'm blessed and life is great and I'm still struggling can exist at the same time. And so many people struggle with that. I miss my old life and I love being a mom, right?
Yeah.
It's as if you have to pick one or the other. And it silences a part of us that really much needs to speak out. So what happens when we silence a part of us that needs to be heard and adapted, to get that need met? Now we have burnout, resentment, and that blends into our relationships with our partners, our friends, and our children. And it's just an endless circle when we silence any part of who we are.
That's so true. Yeah, this is bringing up a lot for me. I'm in a book writing process, so I've been thinking back to, I've been thinking about that time in my life, and how you wrote about this really resonated with me because I was thinking it back to going back to work, 2 kids under 2, and I felt so lucky that I had air quote good job and healthy kids and a supportive husband that I felt like I had to just I was in this like weird proving mode. Like I can do it all. I can do it all. And I was exhausted. I mean, like tears came to my eyes remembering that there was like one time where I like hid in the back of my minivan and like took a 3-minute power nap. Like I just felt like I had to hide how much I was struggling because it's become normal. It's just like what we're expected to do as moms.
And you know what? The hiding the struggle, I think so many of us do that because that's what we saw potentially our parents doing or our mothers doing. How often do you remember seeing your mom be open about, I'm overstimulated right now, I need a break, or I have a lot going on and I just need to cry. Could I please have a hug because I need some help? I don't remember my mom ever doing that, right? So we see, oh, well, mom did it all. I say all the time, I'm like, I played sports and, we had all these different ages and I have 2 siblings and my mom still somehow had dinner on the table for us to sit down together 99% of the time. How in the heck can you do that? Because I'm sitting here like, sorry, we're going to eat in the car today. That's just what we're doing. Right. So I had this idea that my mom is super mom. Somehow she figures it out. She does it all and still works, right? But I feel like I know that does such a disservice to our children when we hide our own feelings and our own experiences, because now our children are growing up without that emotional intelligence, without that understanding of it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to have your feelings. It's okay to ask for help, like all of these things. So there are many, many times where I'm telling my children, my head feels very loud right now. My head is buzzing. I need a few minutes to myself because I don't want to yell. I need a break. I am overwhelmed. And 90% of the time I do that the proper way. Every once in a while, I'm like, because we're still human. But what I see my children doing, and my clients do this as well, and it continues the pattern, which is amazing. I see them talk to me the same way. My head
Mm.
feels really loud right now. Now, do they always do it in the right tone, or they have it a little louder? That's there, but they're using their words instead of behaviorally acting out. Right. And they're able to say, I need a hug. There's just too much happening right now. Right. So I know the signals of my children as to what's happening in their head. So I go to tell my child, I'm like, or my children, I'm like, okay, there's too much in my head right now, because that's how they describe that feeling to me. So now we can make a connection. They understand how I feel, and I understand how they feel. So when I'm interpreting their behaviors, a lot of mothers, parents, what we'll do is like, I don't understand why you're yelling at me right now, or I don't understand why this is hard for you. That feeling, I don't know what to do with it. So just knock it off. But if you really understand where it's coming from and can connect it to how you feel, react to it differently. You react to it with compassion, and you react to it with grace. Then we teach all the other things that children deserve to learn about their feelings, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting, Amy, because I mean, first of all, I want to talk a little bit about, how moms today and your opinion on us modeling a not flawless version of life or motherhood and how that's a service. But also, I want to circle back to that shared language it seems like you're developing with your kids, because that seems to be like a small benefit that I haven't thought about as much. So let's start with just telling us a little bit more about sharing in an appropriate, meaningful way, kind of like our own growing pains and imperfections as we navigate modern motherhood, and how we talk about that with our family in a way that brings them in and serves everyone.
One, you're going to make a lot of mistakes along the way trying to figure this out. And just putting that out there, because we're human, and you talk about repair a little bit as well, because that is such a wonderful thing to teach children. I definitely started this in the womb, when my children were in the womb. And I've been a therapist for a long time. I've done training for like 0 to 5, like birth to 5 programs in infancy mental health. And I'm like, well, I'm going to start this early. So my kids are in my belly, and I'm like, well, mommy's feeling this way right now. And, we do a lot of I statements, or I narrate a lot, right? And because this works for me doesn't mean it's for anybody else. But my children are very used to us talking about feelings. They're used to me singing through the house. I'm really angry right now. I want to punch something, like, because it helps me to slow down, but it helps normalize the feeling. And I remember one time I did sing a song. One, singing helps me calm down. It slows down my body a little bit so I don't react. But my daughter, I remember I said that one time. It was like the morning rush. There was nothing for me to, my feelings were way bigger than the scenario. And I logically knew that, but my body was way too strong for my brain to understand, right? Those moments.
Mhm.
And I remember I sang that out loud. And then my daughter sang back to me, Mommy, it's okay to have feelings, and it's okay to ask for help. And I was like, okay, well, now I'm just going to cry and I feel better. Like,
Oh.
right? So when you use the language, and it might be, if your children are young, sad and mad, right? So you're saying, I'm mad right now because, and it doesn't have to be related to your child. It could be because you burnt dinner, or because you forgot to do so. I don't know, whatever the case is. But however they're modeling that language, you just want to say the same thing. When you see them getting frustrated, building Legos, that looks frustrated. Would you like some help? Right? It's a lot of just being in tune with what your child is feeling and staying present calmly with them. That's the key. You don't always have to fix it. Right. And then that's, I think, a lot of the mistakes that we make is we go into these big feelings with children wanting to fix it. Don't cry. It's okay. They want to cry, let them cry. Why tell them not to cry? Like, they're sad. Doesn't mean you agree with it. We have good intention, but it hurts the emotional intelligence of our children sometimes when we minimize that for them. So a lot of it is just sitting still. My son does not like to be comforted, being held a lot of the times. So I sit still quietly, as close to him as he allows me. My daughter, on the other hand, she needs that physical touch for nervous system regulation. So I think it's just learning what your children need to stay regulated, and that it might not always be what you want to give them. They can't regulate if you aren't regulated. That's the key.
Let's talk about that a little bit more because I like how you articulated that moment where you knew your emotional reaction was bigger than the moment, but you can't override your body. And based on everything you know and teach, I know that it's a lot of how we grew up, our environment. There's a gazillion reasons why we might be in that situation. Besides singing our, kind of singing our song, which is someone might want to try that. I mean, it's just kind of I like anything that's a pattern interrupt in those moments. What else has helped you as someone who taught this and knew these tools before childhood or before you were a mother and now you actually are like putting the rubber to the road yourself? Like what's actually helped the most for you?
What's actually helped is being preventative, not actually in the moment. So the things that I use in the moment are things that I'm using when I'm not activated. Because it's like playing sports. You don't show up to a championship game without practicing all year every day, right? You practice so that way you show up when it matters. So I like to teach scaling, and you could do a 1 to 10 scale, a green light, yellow light, red light, however your brain interprets it, but knowing where your zones are, knowing what you're thinking about when you're in the green zone, yellow zone, red zone, knowing where you are emotionally. The biggest part is your body. The body will give you messages before your brain is able to acknowledge something's wrong. If we're not paying attention to our body, we're going to miss the message. And then we're going to scale up higher, which means our skills probably won't work. So I know a lot of my clients, and even when I worked with children earlier in my career, where we talk about deep breathing, and everyone would roll their eyes at me. Like, that's the stupidest skill. It never worked every time. Well, not every time, but a lot. And I was just like, it does work. Let's talk about why not. A lot of times people use it when they're already in the red zone. So it's not going to work. Your nervous system is offline. You are too dysregulated for breathing to work. You have to use it when you're in the green zone. So your mind body connection is able to realize I have this skill. I'm in tune with my body. I know what I'm doing. Right. So you catch it as you're climbing up the scale earlier and earlier and earlier. So you never make it to the red zone.
Mm.
Those moments go back to what I said, like those self-care, like sprinkle it in. That might mean every time I use the bathroom, which if you're a mom and you had a couple kids, you're using the bathroom a lot, right? So every time you use the bathroom, pair that with taking a 30-second deep breath break. What's my body doing? For me, my signal is I vibrate. I know that sounds weird. Like my body buzzes, especially like my head when I'm overstimulated or I haven't given my brain enough time to not think. And if I don't pay attention to that and soothe it as it's coming up, I know I'm going to end up yelling at my kids and they don't deserve that. I know that's my pattern. So my goal, my intention is to not do that. Plus, I feel like crap, like before, during, and after, right? So if I'm like, okay, I might need to take a 2-minute break before I go back to work. Or maybe I need to go out and see the sunshine because what time of day is it? I don't even know, right? That's the pattern we go into. So that self-care for me is making sure that I pause and breathe to reflect on where I am presently in that day. That's what's going to help be able to regulate in that moment because now you're going to be able to say, okay, I don't feel right. I need to pause before I respond is ultimately where I was going with that one.
Yeah, I want to reflect that back to you because it makes a lot of sense. I mean, number one, just reiterating that breathing practices are great, but don't be an emergency breath practice person. I mean, use it. I'm always like, use that tool like whenever and however it benefits you. But I agree. I feel like the point that's really sticking out for me from what you said is maybe like whenever you're transitioning, the bathroom's perfect, like you say. Check in with your body then because sometimes I'll notice for me it's often my like neck and shoulders like I start like clenching up a little bit and it's like okay before you get to the point of no return it's almost like I'm picturing that roller coaster that like once you get there it's harder to get back but if you consciously check in with your body throughout the day and you try to do something small and nourishing to kind of ratchet down the stress or the distraction or the noise a little bit, then you get a little bit closer to your baseline instead of, going up past that point of no return. Is that a fair analogy?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. And it
Okay.
could be as simple as drinking water and having a snack, right? Like
Yeah.
when last time you nourished your body.
Yes. Okay. I mentioned this. There's so many great parts
Right.
of your book. I feel like we need to do like a 5-point conversation, but there's a couple other things that I want to make sure I touch on in our conversation. One of them is unspoken grief in motherhood, because you touch on that in various places, whether around identity loss or not feeling good in our bodies. I think a lot of women stuff this down and suffer in silence because they feel guilty sometimes admitting that they want more, or admitting that they miss their friendships or a past version of their self or their relationship. In your work with clients, how do you see this manifesting, and do women have trouble articulating it?
I think they have trouble acknowledging it, which very much means they have trouble articulating. I mean, I know I did personally. It was a bit, it's very interesting. So that awareness of what it is that you're feeling, if you're autopilot, you don't catch it. And then before you know it, you're 3, 4, 5 years later and you're, geez, who am I? What am I doing? And your kids are getting older, right? So the idea of grieving who I was and integrating it into the new version of me still comes up every once in a while. I think I put it in one of the earlier chapters. I ended up getting 2 autoimmune disorders after each of my one after each of my pregnancies, which very much impacted my ability to be physically active, which was so much of my identity. Like I shared with you, like I lived at the gym, and even if I did have time, I physically can't do the stuff that I was able to do before. So it took me a very long shift of, well, if I can't do it for 2 hours, I'm not doing it at all. So that was a grief part, grieving that part of me without hiding it, without pushing it down. And I think a lot of mothers do that when they finally come to me and they're like, "Kids are 17 now. Like, I don't know who I am or what I'm doing. We're going into empty nest and it's been forever. I'm a single mom, or I don't even know my partner anymore," or like all of these things. The fact that that women are even saying it out loud, that's the first step, right? Being able to acknowledge what doesn't feel right, what doesn't align with your values, what doesn't align with who you remember being. And then we just slowly start to integrate and remember, well, what is it that brings you joy? What's being neglected? What have you learned? And how do you want to, kind of bring in a new piece of who you are?
Yeah. I think that that space to just acknowledge and know that it's so common, even though it's not commonly spoken out loud necessarily, that's helpful. I want to end on touching on friendships, because I know we are perhaps in a loneliness pandemic, and we all know that motherhood often reshapes our friendships, and some friendships fade, some deepen. Many of us are lucky enough to make new friends based off of our shared experience of motherhood. Some people feel like they never find their tribe. What's your best advice for finding and maintaining meaningful friendships during motherhood?
You have to find yourself first. And this is any kind of relationship. The whole, you gotta love yourself before you love everybody else. Everybody hates when I say that. So I try to adapt it, but it's still the same thing. Whatever that version of loving yourself is, being confident in who you are and understanding that you are worthy of love and connection, even with the flaws or even with the things that you're experiencing, which goes back to childhood trauma a lot of the times, being able to do that. So we work through that a lot, just being able to accept who you are, love who you are, be confident in who you are. And I feel like that attracts a different energy in terms of friendships, or doing that clears up space in your head to strengthen the relationships you already have. Because a lot of times there's that fogginess, or it's just like, I don't have the capacity to be social right now. I'm too overstimulated to want to leave my house. And I experience that a lot. And there's times where we're supposed to meet friends and I'm like, I can't get off the couch right now. Like my head, I can't even think about standing up. Too overwhelmed, so much going on. I'm so tired. And their mothers too. So like we get it. I have a great support of friends, but I think it naturally happens when you do the healing yourself.
Yeah. And I think it also, a piece of your book that's coming back to me a little bit is when you feel, centered in your own motherhood experience, is something that I like to, that's kind of a phrase that's saying a similar thing, but that's how I think of it. You're not feeling like you have to perform some version of you as a mother, which
Mhm.
is just sounds exhausting even saying that out loud. But, sometimes I think moms, especially when they have younger kids, are very self-conscious about perceptions from other people, and it's a barrier for them to gather. And I think it takes bravery to be honest about what's really going on, but that's usually how you find more intimate relationships, right?
Absolutely. That's where those connections come in, I think, as adults, because now you have this shared experience and the idea of just being together with somebody else who knows what you're experiencing and that person isn't trying to fix you or change you or judge you. They're just like, yep, I hear you. That sucks. Right. I think the idea of validation in any kind of relationship or communication, just reflect back what someone's saying. They just want to be heard. They just want to know like their experiences matter. They're real and they're not crazy. And I don't like to use the word, but a lot of my clients were like, so I'm not crazy. And I'm like, no. And it speaks so much to how much they were potentially feeling isolated, living in this
Hmm.
where they didn't feel that their feelings or experiences or thoughts were normal because
Hmm.
no one else could relate to them or that, they weren't in an environment that was relatable.
Well, that's a beautiful invitation for us all to just, reach out, try to connect and as openly and vulnerably as we feel comfortable. Amy, is there anything coming to mind? I feel like we've covered a lot of beautiful territory. Is there any messages or advice on your heart to share with mothers that I didn't have a chance to ask you about?
I think it's just the idea of compassion, like having compassion for yourself of whatever stage of motherhood you're in, allowing whatever parts are showing up, whether it's the grief or the sadness or the guilt, the excitement about the future to have time to yourself here and there, like whatever it is that's coming up, don't silence it because that's going to be a volcano that erupts or has potentially already erupted. But just kind of take a moment to be like, hey, I hear you, grief. Like, what are we feeling today? What are we talking about? How can we pay attention to this feeling and still live our life? Going forward, the adaptation of what our new identity is or what our new life looks like. But the biggest part is not silencing who you are.
Hmm.
And that is always easier said than done.
I always end my conversations with an opportunity for reflection. Your book has a lot of gorgeous reflections, so hopefully this will be easy for you. But in this, area of really coming home to our identity and being open and tending to our bodies and our nervous systems in motherhood, what's one question women could be asking themselves more?
What do I need right now?
Yeah, simple. Maybe they can do that during their bathroom check-ins too.
That's it. That's it. Do it in the bathroom check-ins. How can I ask for help right now? Being able to use the support system, assuming they have one around them, like because we don't ask for help. We're super mom. We'll do it all ourselves. Plus, it's easier. It's faster. That's how it goes. But I know there's times where relinquishing the control, which a lot of us have issues with. When my husband cooks dinner, I'm a lot better with it now. Fatigue is a big part of it, but it was so hard to relinquish the control to allow him to cook dinner. He's a capable human being. He can very much cook what he's got to cook. And he's like, go sit down and rest. I'll cook. And I'm like, but like, you want me to prep it for you? Like, it's this weird thing. It's like, it's okay to ask for help and then go take some time for yourself. Right. And we just need to accept that we're allowed to do that without the guilt that comes with it for whatever reason. But what do I need? How can I ask for help?
That's a
Rest.
beautiful place to close. Thank you, Amy. I know that my community will want to follow you and read your book and, support you in your expansion. So tell us where we can find you.
All right. So I am on Facebook. It's Amy Haydak. I don't use it that much, but I am there. I'm a bad social media person, but you can find that. I have a Parenting with Purpose Facebook group as well. I like to be able to try and bring in as many resources as I can, free resources, of course. And whenever I launch different things or have different sales, making sure that the group is like the first place to get the information. But I have my coaching website. It's amyhaydakcoaching.com. And you'll find I have a cycle breaker course on there. So any women who are looking to dive a little bit into their childhood and experiences and how they are shaping their identity, their worth, their confidence, their relationships, their parenting, and so on and so forth. The course is designed to really take a deeper dive into that and it incorporates a lot of the stuff we talked about today. I have a resilient roots therapy. That's my practice for therapy in New Jersey. So any New Jersey people, they can visit there and check me out there. But those are the best spots to get a hold of me.
Amazing. We'll make sure to capture those resources in the show notes. Thank you for being here, Amy. It was great to connect.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm so glad you joined me today. If you're looking for more, feel free to connect with me on Instagram at @WhitneyWoman. And if you enjoyed the show, I invite you to support me by leaving a review or sharing it with a friend. Hope you have an inspired day.